I never thought I'd be the guy posting on a throwaway account, but here I am. My hands are actually shaking as I type this, and I've got a bottle of cheap bourbon sitting on the desk next to me that is looking more like a solution than a drink right about now. To understand the absolute mess I'm in, you have to understand the family dynamic. I'm Mark, M32. My sister is Chloe, F28. In our house, Chloe was the sun, and we were all just expected to rotate around her until we were dizzy. My mother, Eleanor, F58, is a professional enabler. If Chloe wanted a pony, Mom would start looking for a stable. If Chloe failed a test, it was the teacher's fault. If Chloe broke a window, I was the one who must have distracted her. My dad, God rest him, was the only one who saw through it. He was a quiet man, a carpenter who worked until his knuckles were permanently swollen. He and I were close, but he was always managing Mom's high-strung personality to keep the peace. He died 2 years ago from a sudden heart attack, and honestly, the light in this family didn't just dim, it went out. After the funeral, things got real very quickly. Dad's will was a mess. It was one of those DIY kits he'd filled out in the 90s. It basically said the family home, a beautiful, if aging Victorian in a neighborhood that's suddenly become trendy, was left to Mom, with the understanding that it would eventually pass to Chloe and me. But here's the kicker. Mom has zero financial literacy. Within 6 months, she had drained Dad's modest life insurance policy. How? By investing in Chloe's dream of becoming a luxury lifestyle influencer. We're talking $5,000 handbags, trips to Tulum for content, and a leased Range Rover that Chloe definitely couldn't afford. I've been the one keeping the roof over our heads. I moved back in after Dad died to help with the mortgage and the taxes. I've spent the last 24 months pouring my salary as an architect into this house. I fixed the roof. I updated the electrical. I paid off the back taxes Mom forgot about. I thought I was protecting our family legacy. I was a fool. Yesterday, I came home early from the firm because a meeting got canceled. As I walked through the mudroom, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. It was Mom and Chloe. I stopped. I shouldn't have listened, but something in Chloe's voice, that sharp, demanding whine she gets, made my blood run cold. "Mom, you don't understand," Chloe was sobbing. "The creditors are calling me every hour. They're going to sue. If I don't get the $150,000 by next month, I'm going to lose everything. I'll have a record. I'll be ruined." I heard the sound of a chair scraping. "Oh, my sweet girl," Mom said, her voice dripping with that suffocating pity. "We won't let that happen. We'll find a way." "What way?" Chloe snapped. "You spent all of Dad's money. There's nothing left but this stupid, dusty house." There was a long silence. Then, my mother spoke in a voice I barely recognized. It was cold, calculating. "We sell the house, Chloe. It's worth at least $700,000 now with the renovations Mark did. We sell it, buy a small condo for me, pay off your debts, and give you a fresh start." "But what about Mark?" Chloe asked. And guys, I waited. I waited for my mother to say, "Mark lives here. Mark paid for the roof. Mark is my son." Instead, Mom said, "Mark is a man. He's successful. He can rent an apartment. He's been helping out of duty, Chloe. He owes us that for all the years we supported him. He'll understand. And if he doesn't, well, the house is in my name. He doesn't have a legal leg to stand on." I felt like I had been punched in the solar plexus. I walked into the kitchen. The look on their faces? Pure guilt for about 3 seconds before Mom masked it with that disappointed parent stare. "Mark, you're home early," she said, smoothing her apron. "I heard you," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I heard everything. Chloe didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She crossed her arms, her $800 heels clicking on the hardwood I just refinished. "Then you know how much trouble I'm in, Mark. You're an architect. You make 6 figures. Why are you being so selfish about a house you don't even own?" "I don't own it?" I stepped toward her. "I've put $80,000 of my own savings into this dusty house in 2 years, Chloe. I've paid the mortgage while you were posting pictures of mimosas in Bali. If I hadn't stepped in, the bank would have foreclosed a year ago." "That was your choice," Mom chimed in, her face reddening. "Nobody forced you to do those things, Mark. You did them because you're part of this family. And right now, Your sister needs this family more than you need a specific zip code. We are selling. I've already called a realtor. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just looked at them. These two women who were willing to render me homeless and throw away my father's legacy to fund a failed influencer's credit card debt. You have until the end of the month to figure this out, Mark, Chloe said, smelling of expensive perfume and entitlement. We're listing it on Monday. I walked out. I didn't go to my room. I went down to the basement, to Dad's old workshop. It's the only place in this house that still feels like him. I sat at his workbench, smelling the cedar and the oil, and I just cried. I felt so alone. I started mindlessly cleaning, moving old jars of nails and rusted saws. I pushed aside Dad's heavy oak roll-top desk, the one he always kept locked. I'd never tried to open it after he died. It felt like trespassing. But today, I didn't care. I grabbed a crowbar. It didn't take much. The wood groaned and splintered. Inside were the usual things. Old tax returns, blueprints, a photo of me when I graduated college. But then, I noticed a small, false bottom in the back of the pencil drawer. I pried it up. Inside was a single heavy brass key with a tag that read, "For Mark, do not tell Eleanor." Taped to the key was a handwritten letter. I'm looking at it right now. The ink is slightly smudged. Mark, my boy, if you're reading this, it means your mother has done exactly what I feared she would do. I loved her, Mark, but I knew her. I knew she'd let Chloe bleed her dry. I couldn't change the house deed without a war, but I kept something back, something she never knew about. This key belongs to a safety deposit box at the downtown branch. Go there alone. Don't tell them. I've left you the real inheritance, the one intended to protect you when the golden child finally burns the bridge down. Use it wisely. I'm proud of you, son. I haven't gone to the bank yet. It's 9 p.m. The bank opens at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Mom and Chloe are upstairs right now, drinking wine and looking at Zillow listings, laughing about how they're going to redecorate Chloe's new life. They have no idea I'm sitting down here with a key that might change everything. I'm terrified of what's in that box. But I'm done being the responsible one. If there is a way to stop this sale or a way to get my money back, I will take it, even if it means leaving them with nothing. Am I the jerk if I use whatever is in this box to ruin their plan? They're my family, but right now they feel like strangers who are robbing me in broad daylight. I'll update you after I visit the bank tomorrow. I need to get some sleep, but I don't think I'll be able to close my eyes. Time passed since last post. 18 hours. I didn't sleep, not for a single second. I spent the entire night sitting on the floor of my father's workshop, staring at that brass key like it was a holy relic or a live grenade. Up above me, I could hear the muffled sounds of my mother and Chloe moving around. They were laughing. At one point, I heard the distinctive pop of a champagne cork. Champagne. They were celebrating the fact that they were about to sell the roof over my head. I left the house at 7:30 a.m. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to smell the coffee Eleanor was making or hear Chloe's high-pitched voice talking about which aesthetic neighborhood she was going to move into next. I sat in the parking lot of the bank for an hour, watching the digital clock on my dashboard tick toward 9 o'clock. My hands were so clammy I could barely keep them on the steering wheel. When the doors finally opened, I was the first one inside. The bank teller, a woman named Mrs. Higgins who had known my dad for 30 years, gave me a sad, knowing smile. "I wondered when you'd come by for this, Mark," she whispered. "Your father was very specific about the access instructions." She led me back to the vault. It's a cold, silent place. It smells like old paper and ionized air. My heart was hammering so loud I thought she could hear it. She used her master key. I used Dad's brass key, and the little metal door swung open. She handed me a long, gray metal box and pointed me toward a private viewing room. I sat down at the small desk, clicked the light on, and opened the lid. Guys, I'm still processing this. I've been sitting in my car for 3 hours just staring at these papers. My dad wasn't just a carpenter. He was a man who knew exactly who he was married to. Inside the box were 3 things. A second, notarized will. This one was dated just 3 months before he died. It turns out the DIY kit Will Mom has been using was actually superseded. In this version, he left the house to a living trust. The beneficiaries of the trust are Mom, with a life estate interest, meaning she can live there until she passes, and me. The kicker? The house cannot be sold without the written notarized consent of the trust's co-executor. That co-executor isn't Mom. It's me. A detailed ledger. Dad had been keeping a secret record for 15 years. It lists every single loan he gave to Chloe, every bailout, every failed business venture, every credit card he paid off for her. The total? $210,000. Underneath the final total, he wrote in his thick, blocky script, "Eleanor knows about none of this. She thinks I'm a fool, but I've been keeping the receipts. Chloe has already had her inheritance. This house is Mark's future. Do not let them take it." A life insurance policy, not the one Mom already spent. A separate private policy Dad took out through his union. I am the sole beneficiary. It's for $250,000. It hasn't been claimed because the insurance company had an old address for me and Mom never told them I was back in town. I felt a mix of absolute relief and white-hot rage. My mother has been gaslighting me for 2 years. She let me pay for everything, the mortgage, the repairs, the taxes, knowing damn well that Dad had intended for me to be the protector of the estate. She tried to bully me into letting her sell it, knowing she didn't even have the legal right to do so without my signature. I drove home. I didn't even try to be quiet. When I walked through the front door, the house was full of people. I'm not joking. Mom was there, Chloe was there, and a woman in a sharp blazer was walking around with a clipboard. "And here's the living room," my mother was saying in that fake, sugary hostess voice. "We've recently refinished the floors. It has such a classic, old money feel, don't you think?" "It's gorgeous," the realtor said, scribbling on her pad. "In this market, we could list this for $750,000 and have a bidding war by Tuesday." "Perfect," Chloe chirped, clutching a designer bag that probably cost more than my first car. "I already found this amazing loft downtown. If we close by next month, I can move in before the summer gala." I stood in the entryway, still holding my dad's gray metal box. "Funny thing about that gala, Chloe," I said. The three of them spun around. Mom's face went from charming to venomous in about half a second. "Mark, we're in the middle of something," Mom snapped. "Go to your room or go back to work. We'll talk about your moving timeline tonight." "The timeline is 0, Mom," I said. I walked right into the center of the living room and set the metal box down on the coffee table. "Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the co-executor of the trust that actually owns this property. Who are you?" The realtor looked at me, then at my mother. "I'm sorry, trust? Mrs. Miller, you told me you were the sole owner." "He's just being difficult," Mom yelled, her voice hitting that shrill note that usually makes me back down. "Mark, stop this embarrassing display right now. I am your mother, and I told you this house is being sold." "You lied to me," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You lied about the will. You lied about Dad's wishes. And you've been letting Chloe bleed you dry for a decade while I worked myself to the bone to keep this family afloat." I pulled out the notarized will and handed it to the realtor. "I suggest you take a look at page 4 under property restrictions. This house cannot be sold without my express permission, and I am telling you right now in front of witnesses, I do not give it. Not today, not Tuesday, not ever." The realtor's eyes went wide as she scanned the document. She looked at my mother, who had turned a ghastly shade of gray. Is this legitimate?" the realtor asked. "It's notarized by Dad's attorney and filed with the county," I lied. It wasn't filed yet, but she didn't know that. "If you list this house, I will sue your agency for clouding the title." The realtor didn't even say goodbye. She tucked her clipboard under her arm and bolted for the door. "Call me when you've settled your family matters, Mrs. Miller. I don't do contested estates." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, the explosion happened. Chloe screamed. It was a literal high-pitched tantrum. "You ruined everything! You selfish, disgusting brat! I'm going to lose my car! I'm going to be ruined because you want to play architect in a house that isn't even yours!" She lunged at me, trying to grab the box, but I held her back. Mom was just standing there, shaking. "How could you do this to your sister, Mark?" Mom whispered. "She's in trouble. Real trouble. They might take her to court for the debt. She's your flesh and blood. And what am I, Mom? What am I to you? Am I just the ATM? Am I just the reliable one you can discard as soon as the golden child needs another fix? I've spent $80,000 on this house. I've given you 2 years of my life. And you were going to throw me out like trash. We were going to give you some of the money, Chloe lied, her face twisted in rage. Bullshit, I said. I've never cursed at my mother before. I heard you in the kitchen yesterday. You weren't giving me a cent. You were giving me 30 days to find a rental while you bought a luxury condo. I picked up the box. I'm going to my lawyer's office now. I'm filing the new will. I'm also looking into the unauthorized spending of Dad's first life insurance policy, which I'm pretty sure was also supposed to be split. Mom looked like she was going to faint. Mark, please, don't do this. We're family. No, I said, walking toward the door. You're a group of people who share my DNA. But the only person who actually cared about my future is dead. And he's the one who gave me the tools to stop you. I'm at a coffee shop now. My lawyer is meeting me in an hour. I can see my phone lighting up. 32 missed calls from Mom, 15 from Chloe. My Aunt Sarah, the family gossip, just texted me asking why I'm trying to put my mother on the street. The flying monkeys are already starting. I'm exhausted. But for the first time in 2 years, I don't feel like a doormat. What should I do about the insurance money? If I claim that $250,000, I could buy Mom out of her life estate and own the house outright, but that would leave her with nothing. Part of me wants to be the bigger person, but the other part of me remembers that champagne cork popping last night while they talked about my moving timeline. Time passed since last update, 3 weeks. The last 21 days have been the longest, most exhausting weeks of my life. I feel like I've aged a decade. I haven't been living at the house. After the scene with the realtor, the atmosphere turned toxic. I'm talking, hide your toothbrush because you're afraid they'll rub it on the floor toxic. I've been staying in a small Airbnb near my firm, living out of a suitcase, and communicating only through my lawyer, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson is a shark. A glorious, gray-haired shark who looked at my dad's secret documents and actually whistled. Mark, he told me, leaning back in his leather chair that smelled like expensive tobacco and old secrets. Your father didn't just leave you a key. He left you a tactical nuke. Here is the situation as of this morning. First, the $210,000 ledger. Because the house is in a living trust, those loans to Chloe are legally classified as advancements on inheritance. This means that even if the house were sold, Chloe's share, her 50%, is already effectively zero. She's already spent her half of the house on Tulum sun hats and designer handbags. She has no claim to a single cent of the equity. Second, the life estate. This is where it got messy. My mother has the right to live in that house until she dies. However, as a life tenant, she has a legal obligation to prevent waste. Waste includes things like not paying property taxes, allowing the structure to fall into disrepair, or, in this case, trying to sell the property out from under the remainder man. That's me. Because I have the receipts proving I've been the one paying the mortgage and taxes for 2 years. Mr. Henderson filed a petition to have my mother removed as the trustee for breach of fiduciary duty. Last Tuesday, the flying monkeys reached a fever pitch. My Aunt Sarah, Mom's sister and the world champion of sticking her nose where it doesn't belong, called me 14 times in 1 hour. When I finally picked up, she didn't even say hello. Mark Miller, you should be ashamed of yourself, she shrieked. I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Your mother is in tears. She says you're trying to throw her onto the street. She's a widow, Mark. A widow. And your poor sister is having a mental breakdown because of the stress you're putting on her. Aunt Sarah, I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. Did Mom tell you that she tried to sell the house while I was living in it? Did she tell you I've paid $80,000 to keep her from being homeless while Chloe blew $200,000 of Dad's money? Family helps family, she yelled. It doesn't matter who paid what. It's Eleanor's house. If she wants to help her daughter, that's her right. You're being a cold, calculating narcissist, just like your father's brother. I hung up. I blocked her. I blocked all of them. But the real explosion happened 2 days ago. I had to go back to the house. I needed my work laptop and some architectural stamps I'd left in the basement workshop. I told them through the lawyer I'd be there at 10 a.m. I even asked for a police escort for a civil standby because I knew how they'd get. When I pulled up with a cruiser behind me, I saw Chloe's Range Rover was blocked in the driveway by a beat-up sedan. 2 men were standing on the porch. They weren't family. They were process servers. Chloe was at the door, screaming at them. Her hair was a mess. She was wearing a silk robe that probably cost $1,000, and she was clutching a venti Starbucks cup like a weapon. "I don't care about the summons," she screamed. "I don't live here. You can't serve me here." "Ma'am, your vehicle is registered to this address," one of the guys said calmly. I stepped out of my car. The officer, a veteran named Sergeant Miller, no relation, walked up with me. Chloe saw me and her face transformed. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. "You did this," she hissed, pointing a manicured finger at me. "You told them where to find me. You're trying to ruin my life." "Chloe, the creditors found you because you post your entire life on Instagram with geotags," I said. "I have nothing to do with your credit card debt." I walked past her into the house. It smelled like stale wine and desperation. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by piles of paper. She looked small. For the first time, she looked her age. But as soon as she saw the police officer, she turned on the waterworks. "Oh, officer, thank God you're here. My son is trying to evict me. I've lived here for 30 years. This is my home. Please, don't let him take my home." "Ma'am, I'm just here to ensure peace while he retrieves his belongings," the sergeant said. He'd clearly seen this drama before. I went down to the basement. My heart stopped. My dad's workshop, the place I'd spent the last few weeks cleaning and honoring, was destroyed. The roll-top desk was smashed. Not just opened, but smashed with a hammer. My blueprints for the new library project were ripped into confetti and scattered across the floor. They'd even knocked over the jars of nails and screws, creating a carpet of metal. I felt a heat behind my eyes I've never felt before. I took a deep breath. I didn't yell. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I just pulled out my phone and took a video of every single inch of the damage. I walked back upstairs. Mom and Chloe were in the living room, Chloe whispering urgently in Mom's ear. "I hope you're happy, Mark," Mom said, her voice cold again. "Chloe's car is being repossessed this afternoon. We had to give them the keys to stop them from towing it in front of the neighbors. If we can't sell this house by Friday, she's going to have to file for bankruptcy. Is that what you want? To see your sister a bankrupt failure?" "She is a bankrupt failure, Mom," I said. "The only difference is whether or not I'm the one paying for it. And I'm done." I pulled out the envelope Henderson gave me. "This is a formal notice. Since you've committed waste by intentionally destroying my professional property and the fixtures in the basement, I am filing for an emergency injunction to take over as sole trustee. And Mom, I'm claiming the $250,000 life insurance policy today." Chloe's jaw dropped. "What life insurance? There was no more insurance. Mom spent it. The policy Dad hid from me," I said. "The one he kept so I could have a life after you two finished picking his pockets." Chloe lost it. She actually lunged at me. She grabbed a heavy glass vase, a wedding gift of my parents, and threw it at my head. I ducked. The vase shattered against the wall right next to the sergeant's head. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop on the hardwood. "Ma'am," the sergeant said, his voice dropping an octave into official territory. "Put your hands behind your back. Now." "It was an accident," Chloe shrieked, her voice cracking. "He provoked me. Mark, tell him. It was an accident." I didn't say a word. I just watched as they handcuffed my sister in our mother's living room. Mom was wailing, clutching at the sergeant's sleeve, begging him to stop. "Get off me, ma'am, or you'll be joining her for obstruction," he warned. They marched Chloe out. She was sobbing, her silk robe flapping in the wind, screaming about how she was going to sue everyone and how her followers would hear about this. Yeah, I'm sure the luxury lifestyle crowd loves a good mugshot. Once the cruiser pulled away, it was just me and my mother in the quiet, shattered house. "You've destroyed this family, Mark," she whispered. She wasn't crying anymore. She just looked at me with a hollow, dead expression. "Your father would be disgusted by you." "No, Mom," I said, picking up my laptop bag. "Dad is the one who gave me the hammer. I'm just the one who finally swung it." I left. I haven't been back. Chloe is currently out on bail. Aunt Sarah paid it, of course. But she's facing a felony assault charge because she threw that vase at a police officer's head. Technically, she missed me, but he was in the line of fire. Her creditors are closing in. Her influencer accounts have gone dark because she can't afford the lease on her camera equipment anymore. As for Mom, Henderson is pushing hard. We're offering her a deal. She moves into a very nice, very comfortable assisted living community that I will pay for using part of the insurance money. In exchange, she signs over her life estate and gives me full ownership of the house. If she doesn't, we go to court for the waste and the breach of trust. She'll lose everything and end up in a state-run facility. It's a mess. I'm being called a monster by every relative I have left. They're saying I should have just fixed Chloe's debt and kept the peace, but the peace was a lie. The peace was just me being a slow-motion sacrifice for a sister who wouldn't give me a glass of water if I was on fire. The final court date is in 2 months. I'm moving my stuff into a storage unit and preparing for the final legal battle. I think I'm going to sell the house once it's all mine. I can't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. Too much broken glass. I'll update you one last time when the dust settles. Time passed since last update. 18 months. I'm sitting on the balcony of my new apartment. It's a modern, minimalist space. Concrete floors, floor-to-ceiling glass, and a view of the city skyline that looks like a circuit board at night. It's a far cry from the creaky floorboards and heavy Victorian wallpaper of my childhood home. It's over. The legal war, the family fallout, the endless depositions. It's all finally behind me. I've had my phone on Do Not Disturb for 3 days just to savor the silence. Let's talk about the house first. After update 2, my mother, Eleanor, tried to fight the waste injunction. She hired a cut-rate lawyer, probably paid for with the last of her jewelry, and tried to claim that I had traumatized Chloe into throwing that vase. She actually stood in front of a judge and said, under oath, that I had been financially abusing them by demanding they pay their own bills. The judge didn't buy it. Not for a second. When my lawyer, Henderson, presented the photos of the destroyed workshop, the ripped-up blueprints, and the ledger of the $210,000 my dad had funneled to Chloe over the years, the judge actually took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose for a full minute. "Mrs. Miller," the judge said, and I remember this word for word, "you are a life tenant, not a dictator. Your son has acted as the sole financial pillar of this estate while you allowed your daughter to treat it like a personal piggy bank." The waste is undeniable. The court stripped her of her trustee status. Because I had the $250,000 from the secret life insurance policy, I didn't just take over the trust. I made her an offer she couldn't refuse. I bought out her life estate for a lump sum. It wasn't enough for her to buy another house, but it wasn't enough to secure her a spot in a very high-end assisted living community for the next 15 years. Moving day was the hardest day of my life. I had to watch my mother pack 30 years of memories into cardboard boxes. She wouldn't look at me. Every time I tried to help her with a heavy trunk, she'd pull away like I was made of acid. "I hope you're happy, Mark," she said as the movers loaded her favorite armchair. "You've officially orphaned yourself. You have the house, you have the money, and you have absolutely no one." "I have the truth, Mom," I told her. "Dad gave me that. You were the one who chose Chloe over the person who is actually keeping you fed." She didn't answer. She just got into Aunt Sarah's car and drove away without looking back. I haven't seen her since. I send the monthly maintenance checks to the facility, and the administrator tells me she's doing fine and spends most of her time playing bridge and complaining about the food. She refuses to take my calls. I've gone full NC, no contact, with Aunt Sarah and the rest of the flying monkeys. They sent a flurry of nasty emails when the house hit the market, calling me a house flipper with no soul. But I just hit delete and moved on. And then there's Chloe. My golden child sister didn't handle the real world very well. The felony assault charge was eventually dropped to a misdemeanor through a plea deal, but she had to serve 200 hours of community service and attend impulse control therapy. But the legal stuff wasn't what broke her. It was the debt. Without the house to borrow against, and with Mom's money locked away in the assisted living trust, Chloe's world collapsed. The Range Rover was repossessed from the courthouse parking lot during one of her hearings. Her designer clothes were sold to a high-end consignment shop just so she could afford her rent. Last I heard, she's living in a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat in a part of town she used to call the Trenches. She's working as a receptionist for a dental office. No more Tulum, no more mimosas. Just 9 to 5 and a mounting pile of interest from the creditors she couldn't dodge. Sometimes I feel a pang of guilt. Then I remember the sound of my dad's desk being smashed with a hammer, and the guilt evaporates. I sold the Victorian house 6 months ago. Before I handed over the keys, I went down to the basement one last time. It was empty. The sawdust was gone, the tools were sold, and the smell of cedar had faded. I stood in the spot where Dad's workbench used to be, and I just said, "Thank you." I felt like a weight I'd been carrying for 2 years finally slid off my shoulders. I realized I wasn't protecting a house. I was protecting myself from people who didn't love me. They loved what I could do for them. I took the proceeds from the sale, nearly $800,000 after taxes and fees, and I've set myself up. I'm back at my firm, but I'm a partner now. I've invested the rest. I don't have to worry about the roof leaking or the taxes being unpaid. Yesterday, I found something in an old jacket pocket. It was a small, rusted nail from Dad's workshop. I've put it in a small shadow box on my mantle in the new apartment. It's my reminder. People on Reddit always ask, is it worth it? Is it worth blowing up the family? My answer? Yes. Because a family that requires you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm isn't a family at all. It's a cult of personality centered around an enabler and a narcissist. I'm 34 now. I'm starting over. I've started dating a woman who is an elementary school teacher. She's kind, she's grounded, and the first time I told her about my family, she didn't call me a monster. She just held my hand and said, "I'm sorry you had to be the adult for so long." That was the first time I cried in a year. So, that's the end of the Miller family saga. The house is gone. The golden child is grounded. The enabler is taken care of, whether she likes it or not. And I'm finally free. Thanks for listening to me vent over the last year and a half. This community was the only thing that kept me sane when the flying monkeys were circling. To anyone else out there dealing with a golden child dynamic, find the key. Whether it's a physical key or just the key to your own self-worth, find it and don't let go. I'm going to go pour that bourbon now, but this time, I'm drinking to celebrate. My mom and sister tried to sell my home to pay for my sister's influencer debt. I found a secret will from my dad, blocked the sale, took over the estate, and put my mom in assisted living. My sister is now working a 9 to 5, and I sold the house for a fresh start. No contact and never been happier.